Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Shalom. This is June 18th, 2012. We are approaching some critical times in mankind's history. There are 8 things I'd like to present to keep in mind. 1. Keep in mind that there are things that influence our actions. These things may come in the form of words, language, people, and or the portals of communication, such as internet, radio, cell phone, etc. There are things that influence our actions, and let us be mindful of that. And deep within our hearts, deep within our beings, there is a spiritual battle. Whereas the Spirit of Yahushua communicates and reaches out to us as we seek to draw close to Him and worship and obey Him. And there's the spirit of the enemy that seeks to distract us from that which is righteous, the things that are righteous. Something else to keep in mind. We have habits. Habits as a result of the cycles of our actions. In other words, our daily routines, things that we do on a daily basis. And as we enter into these latter days, there's going to be many things out there to try to influence what direction we turn, what do we do, how do we do it. We're going to be faced with abrupt changes in the cycles of our daily routines. You'll know it when the time comes. You'll remember, because confirmation will come. Strongholds. In other words, our place. Locations that we're familiar with, we tend to not want to leave, not want to transition. But I believe we need to realize that the comfort we have in being in our city, our town, or village, that comfort is a result of time and familiarity and exposure. But let us become familiar with our travel paths, our goings and comings. And let us become familiar with, there may be, for some of us, for many of us, a time to relocate. Know that the difficulty in making such a decision is a stronghold. It may be a wise decision, it may not, depending on where the Spirit of Yahushua will guide you. Keep in mind people. We have become comfortable around those that we know, family, friends, those we went to school with, those we work with. People can also be a comforting element. But let us realize that everyone that we see and speak to and interact with, whether it be at work, home, that's right, home, or in our neighborhoods, not every one of them have the sincere desire to worship and obey the Most High. And so not all that say that they're with you are with you. So let us be mindful of that. Let us be mindful of that with a sincere heart, knowing that the time may come when the Spirit of Yahushua will begin to gather those who seek to worship and obey Him in the Spirit and truth in order to fulfill various scriptures. Let us be mindful that if we are called to transition, there may be resources we would be required to take with us. I am compelled to believe, my brothers and sisters, that some severe storms are coming. Whirlwind and storms are coming. And they will be in the form of man-made, natural disasters. Nevertheless, these whirlwind and storms can be defined as abrupt, chaotic events that will disrupt the normal life as we see it and know it. And in that disruption, I am compelled to believe that the Spirit of Yahushua will be guiding Yashar'al, both Hebrew and Goyim, that Goyim being Gentiles, other nations, who seek to do the will of the Father who seek to worship and obey him. I am compelled to believe that when these storms and whirlwinds start increasing, and some of these will be in the face of economic collapse, natural disasters, but we will begin to face some disruptions that will utterly change the way we know life as it exists in our communities, in our villages, in our countries. A major paradigm shift is over the horizon, my brothers and sisters. A paradigm shift that will change the way the world is governed by those who are in control. But deep within, many fail to realize that it is Yah, it is Yahuwah, the Almighty Father, the Almighty Creator, that has a plan, that has prophesied of the things that are to come, that have told us and instructed us to be mindful of the signs and the times, that we be not taken unaware. So whether you believe any doctrinal message or beliefs that I presented to you in other presentations or brought to you in other presentations, whether you agree with the words that I say, no matter what you think of me, consider this paradigm shift. There is so much information on the practical side that can be presented to show that the world is crumbling, that mankind greed, deceit, and rebellion is reaching a peak. There are so many signs from a practical and realistic perspective to know that major changes are coming globally. Major. So either we are believers and believe that the scriptures are true and that they will be fulfilled, or not. Prepare, my brothers and sisters, prepare. Timing is critical. Do not take my words or the words of others and start rushing to Israel as we know it. For I am compelled to believe that the land that the Father had for all of Yashar'al to return to have geographic boundaries that do not resemble what we see on the maps that we see and hear about on the internet. I am compelled to believe that the geographic boundaries are quite different. And I am compelled to believe that those who the Father have designated to represent Yashar'al returning to that land, he is preparing us and calling us to listen to his voice, whether it be through a servant, a leader, a shepherd, whether it be through the opening the mouth of a donkey or the rocks crying out. I believe the Father is preparing us, and we'll know, each of us will know. And all these attributes, influences, words, language, people, portals of communication, things that influence whether we move or don't move, as well as the spiritual influences, whether it be Shaitan or the spirit of Yahushua. Let us study, read, and pray. Let us begin to fellowship, and let us begin to talk about how we would step out of these routine habits, how we would step away from these strongholds, these places we're familiar with, these travel paths that we commonly take each day, going to work, coming home, going to school, going to visit friends. Let us prepare our minds to realize that there's going to be an adjustment to the people that are around us, the positions that people have, people directing, people following, people supporting, people confirming. Let us be mindful that transitions are coming, my brothers and sisters. And in that transition, there will be resources. One of the most important and valuable things I would encourage each brother and sister to do is have some water. Have enough water and ask yourself, how much water can you carry in a backpack for yourself? Because gold and money, precious gems and stones and metals, we cannot consume that will help sustain life from a practical perspective. So I'm not saying store up a whole lot of water, but I'm saying at least store some water up in your apartment, in your home, and have some bottled water. So when the chaos hit and Yahushua calls you to move, you can begin to make that transition in the direction that you're guided. And each of us will know. Those who are to be led by the Spirit of Yahushua, those who are to represent the confirmation of Yashar'al being gathered together, will know. But take this heed to heart. Keep some water. I would say keep at least a case of water, preferably more. So if you and a brother or sister are called to transition, there's enough water for a few days' journey. Some of you might say this man is a quack or he don't know what he's talking about. That is your prerogative. But just remember, when the time comes, you'll receive confirmation. You'll know in your heart that it is indeed the Spirit of Yahushua guiding you. Out of all these things that I've spoken of, never take your eyes off the guidance of the Spirit of Yahushua. Know that the written scriptures are made alive by His Spirit. So if you just take a scripture and say, oh, well, it says don't worry about tomorrow, or it tells us not to worry, or don't give thought to the next day. If you're taking scripture in part and it's not being backed by the Spirit of Yahushua, then you've done that and will receive a false sense of security. For there are scriptures that tell us not to worry. So don't confuse preparation and guidance from the Most High as worry. Let us not mislabel the guiding power of the Spirit of Yahushua, the guiding power of the Father, by wrongly snatching whatever scripture that will fuel us to be complacent or apathetic or non-responsive. Let us be mindful, my brothers and sisters. Now, with that said, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. If unemployment skyrockets to 20, 23, 24, 25%, if unemployment start increasing at a rapid pace, we will begin to see crime increase. Murders, deaths, robberies. As chaos begins to raise its ugly head in larger numbers, it will soon affect us if it haven't already. Sooner or later, the chaos is going to become so unbearable, undescribable, that we will be forced out of our homes or apartments. We will be forced to make decisions on what camps or what groups we'll get around to try to sustain ourselves. Yes, many have been on the internet and seen that there are FEMA camps being constructed throughout the U.S., possibly the world. There are preppers who are not even concerned about the Father or righteousness, but they're just prepping because they see the practical signs of chaos over the horizon. Let us not be blind. As for me, my brothers and sisters, I am compelled to believe that those of us who are in the United States that consider themselves Hebrews, children of the Most High, they consider themselves a part of Yashar'al, a family that seek to do the will of the Father, worship and obey Him, and yield to His guidance according to His scriptures. Those of us who are in the United States, I am compelled to believe that at some point, as chaos erupts and disorder erupts, that it'll get so intense, people will say, well, where do we go? What should we do? I will say to you, as for me and my wife, we are preparing to head eastward to Virginia. I don't know what city at this point, and I don't know what's going to happen when we get there. But keep in mind, if chaos broke out in your community, just holding up in a small... This message will continue in part 2. This message will continue in part 2 in a moment.